I study horses, beauty matched only by their strength. I try and capture a little of...
All right, we're here at Skyland Ranch with Casey Letterman, and she is letting us trim some horses together. I'm working with Brendan Wren here, who is an up-and-coming farrier assistant on his way to becoming a junior farrier. And I'm really excited to be working with him. Kind of the first hands-on trimming experience where Brendan's going to do the whole process from start to finish. And we're going to talk about it the whole way so we can start to have a framework to interpret what he's seeing and then learn how to exercise a plan. So based on our methodology, Brendan Scott, an incredible natural quietness that lends itself to being a really good farrier. So I'm excited to see where we can go with this. And this here is Robbie, who's very excited to get trimmed by Brendan today.
Yeah, so this is pretty cool. First hands-on trimming session with Seth. I mostly assist Brandon, so I see a little bit more, therapeutic stuff, a little bit more scientifical and supporting broken parts. But yeah, this is super cool, and I'm looking forward to it.
Let's get scientifical. So you're gonna nip you down to probably about there. That's going to be as much depth as you take, at least the first go around. Interestingly, you can see that the concavity is slightly deeper on the medial. I see that. So all the pieces of information point to the same thing. Good. Okay. Normal position. Nippers perpendicular to the hoof, not tipped in, not tipped out. It doesn't have to be exact. It's okay if it is a little bit or one or the other. But that's your goal, okay? I'm going to start, and you're going to imagine that this is one plane, and you're going to tip that plane in a little bit.
Okay.
So what that means is, if I was imagining it a plane and then I'm tipping it to the inside a little bit, I enter that cut about there and come out about there. Okay? Nippers up, both hands, and feel texture. Good. Oh, we got the twist already. Yep. So imagine you're following an imaginary line. Fantastic. Good job. Yes. Okay. Now evaluate again. You made that look easy. And again, the most important is the distance.
Right. So we got a little bit more even distance. Actually looking a lot better. And then it looks like this heel is just a little high on the lateral side.
Yeah. Yep. Just a little bit. Let me take a look. This actually looks pretty fantastic. Tiny high spot there and tiny high spot there.
Okay.
That's what I see. So see if you can see that. And then I'd use your rasp to brush it down slightly. And then we'll move on to the next step.
Okay.
All right. So we successfully went through everything. We got through this trim really well, I think. And one of the most important things that we went over and that Brendan did really successfully was not take too much in any particular place. And we left structure, we left volume, he left mass, so that horse has some protection and tissue structure to work with for next time. And, of course, anytime we can leave too much and the horse still be comfortable, but if we take too much, they'll end up uncomfortable really fast. So we evaluated his environment, what it's going to be, his job over the next 6 weeks, left him barefoot, and did a really nice, comfortable trim.
Yeah, it was a great time. Honestly, it's so cool to see just the methodology behind the trim we do, and to realize that, you know, like Seth said, you would rather leave more instead of take more and end up with a lame horse. I'm excited to just focus on what I can improve and just to better myself and better the horses. Yeah.
Matched only by their strength. I try and capture a little of.
So, looking at shoe shape, it's something I think about a lot because you're trying to shape to the foot, but also, you know, shape in the way you want the foot to eventually be. So you're kind of looking in the present moment and also in the future. So if you have an imbalanced foot with flare and distortion, you don't want to necessarily fit the distortion. You kind of want to put shoe where you want foot. And with that said, you know, it needs to fit the foot. You can't go to the extreme. So how I usually like to think about shoe shaping is reading between the lines. You know, so you look at the foot, figure out what the general shape of the foot is, and then you're kind of deciding where you want the foot to eventually be with symmetry, medial lateral balance, that kind of thing. And then you're shaping the foot or the shoe to that shape. So usually if you have asymmetric imbalanced feet, I'm thinking of it as shaping the shoe more symmetric than the foot actually is, and then accommodating, you know, the imbalanced contracted heels and stuff like that with the trim. And, you know, say you have a really contracted medial wall that's very vertical and then a flared lateral wall, which is very common. I'm going to fit that medial wall a little wider, give that side of the shoe a pretty hard bevel to safe it, and then fit the lateral just a little bit tighter. So you're getting the shoe more under the coronary band than the foot actually is. So you're getting more symmetrical balance. And in doing that, you're getting the platform of the foot more under the leg. And we can kind of, she's actually a good example of that. We can talk about that as we go with her. So you can see how this foot is growing like this and like this. So if we didn't control this wall and this vertical growth, this heel will be crushed and the quality of that heel will be awful and probably painful. So we got to control this medial wall because it's a reflection of our conformation. And we're not fixing anything, we're just kind of maintaining. With foals, it's a different story because you can actually adjust their conformation because their growth plates are still active. Well, with adult horses, you're not fixing conformation. You're just kind of maintaining the reflections of the conformation within the hoof. That being said, if they have a certain conformation and the foot is not maintained, that conformation is going to be accentuated and made worse because the hoof it's like a vicious circle, if that makes sense. So again, most of my trimming was on that medial, kind of not avoiding this, but maintaining that lateral heel and not taking much from it. And then now the plane of her foot is more perpendicular with the long axis of her limb. And when you put the foot down, if she doesn't stand weird, which of course she will, but when she settles, finds a place to stand, that limb should pop out.
Hey, we're here with Austin, owned by Stacy Smith at Deerfield. We're going to go over his feet, get him trimmed up, ready for new shoes for the show next week, and talk a little bit about the proportional relationships between feet, which I have found to be incredibly useful to help define my plan, looking at the measurements in each foot compared to itself, the measurements in each foot compared to its pair, and the measurements in each foot compared to all the other 3 feet. And seeing that relationship helps me develop my plan and modify my plan. And then seeing the change in those relationships over time has helped me confirm that I'm headed in the right direction, or tell me I'm not headed in the right direction, and or see problems that are developing before they become big problems. Let's get started. So sometimes if there's a question about any kind of balance, you know, we're always shoeing and trimming for dynamic balance, but we're looking at a static horse. So I'm gonna have Delano walking for me so I can evaluate what I've done so far and make any changes I need to make. Now, because I haven't over trimmed, I'm able to make changes if I need to. Great, perfect. And I do see changes to make here, so whenever there's a question, just move them out and see how it looks, if you can. So when Delano walked him out, what I saw was that his hind end was tipped to the right. High lateral left, high medial right is what it looked like. So I'm going to take a little bit more off of those areas, and then we'll put shoes on and see how it goes. Interestingly, that's been his pattern. So it doesn't scare me to make those changes. I just want to make sure I got them if they were there to get. It's important to, if you see them, make those small changes now if you're not going to hurt anything else. Because as you know, in shoeing, you get them as close as you can at the particular time of shoeing, but then over the course of the cycle, they grow out imbalanced. It's inevitable. We can't make them grow balanced 100% perfect. So I got to see and do what I can within the confines of not making him sore to get him as perfect as I can, knowing that I'll never get him perfect and that he's going to grow out imperfectly between now and the next time. Actually, Delano, let's walk him out one more time, okay? Okay, great. I constantly have to remind myself it's never going to be perfect, and always do a little less than I think I should, because it's easy, I think, for all of us to stay and trim and trim and trim to try to get it perfect. A little bit here, a little bit there. And pretty soon we end up with nothing left. So it's important to stop at some point and just move on. Austin's ready to be done. All right, we went through some of the superficial or some of the proportional relationships that we work with in our normal course of everyday shoeing. And we've achieved all those goals in this trim with the hinds are slightly longer than the fronts by 1/8 of an inch. The size is a 1/2 inch smaller behind. The angles are 2 inches or 2 degrees steeper behind. The HPA is pretty good. With a normal size for a horse his size, a normal toe length for a horse's size. Haven't trimmed into the sensitive tissue or even the live sole. Plenty to burn. Nice concavity. Good heel structure. We have strength, integrity, volume, mass. And the trainer reports that he's going pretty well. These are all the things we try to achieve either at the time of any particular shoeing or over the course of successive shoeings if we're deficient in any one of those areas. So, and of course, we always rely on our team and feedback from the owner and the trainer to really assess dynamic balance, because we ultimately don't know that, and we can read it in the feet, but the owners and the trainers will give us amazing feedback if we know what questions to ask and how to listen. It helps us move toward a more comfortable horse and a better proportional relationship.
I study horses, beauty matched only by their strength. I try and capture a little of that as I move on without your face. I study horses, my picture of